And please stay to the left again, folks, because other people are coming up. Thank you. And there are more people coming up, folks, so please stay to the left again. So that's the dining room I mentioned, folks. If you want to have a quick look, and then we'll join up in the ballroom whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Century progressed, because this is, King George III was crowned in 1760, so later on, over halfway through, and more ermine was very, very popular, because if you look back, like this king down here, that is King Charles II. Notice he doesn't really have any at all, like there's none. This just became, the ermine tails became the fashion, and so as the 17th and 18th centuries progressed, you saw more of them.
That's your typical depiction of like a king. He's got on the fur.
He's got the fur stuff on. Yeah, very expensive. So that's probably why they're all in there.
What was the wig about?
The wig? That I do not know if he's wearing a wig or if that is his own hair. To be perfectly honest, but they wore wigs for fashion because in order to wear a wig in the 18th century, you had to get your head shaved. So if you had your head shaved, though, you could have like as many different colored wigs, styled wigs as you wanted. So you could be long, short, black, brown, powdered, not powdered, all over the place. Whoops! And friends, if you would step aside so she can come on through. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, it was basically all fashion, more or less. And if you did not wear a wig, you could get your own hair powdered and styled. And so George Washington never wore a wig. Never. It was always his own hair that he got styled and powdered.
So they curled it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they curled it. Do you know that? Yeah. But welcome to the ballroom, my friends. This was actually known throughout the entire capital city here in Williamsburg as the most impressive, elegant, grandest, the largest entertainment space throughout the entire city here. And thanks to Governor Botetourt, the gentleman I mentioned that had the extensive inventory done upon his death, he also kept meticulous records. So we know from his records that this is actually what the ballroom looked like. They had this lovely blue color, it was called Prussian blue, with the gold trim. And on top of all that, you ready? They even had wall-to-wall carpet. Big, big deal. Again, going back to those textiles, extremely expensive, especially in a room this size, which is about 3 to 4 times the size of the average Virginian's home, those people that are just living on their land farming. And it's in a room where a lot of foot traffic is going to be coming and going, so it's going to wear out pretty fast. So this was a huge statement of wealth here. And of course, you also have another reminder of who's ultimately in charge and the authority figures in the British Empire, with King George III being right here and his wife, Queen Charlotte. And so these are actually original copies of their coronation portraits. So these date back to the 1760s right here. But of course, let's say you all are honored guests of Lord Dunmore for that lavish ball he gives when he comes back from his western travels. And once you've entered this space and paid your respects to him, you would all line up for the dancing, but it was always in descending social order. So you would have the most important people on this end of the room by the royal governor, all the way to what was considered the least important. Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. However, you have to keep in mind the very fact that you are in this space means you're within the top 2 to 3% roughly of the population here in Virginia. But even within that, there was the social hierarchy. And so everybody be lined up accordingly, but they're all dressed in their finery, all in their elegance. So you can imagine the atmosphere with all the candles lit, the musicians with their powdered wigs all performing over here. Remember, this ball Lord Dunmore gives is in January of 1775, so it's freezing cold outside. So the warming stove over there is all nice and fueled up. But even so, even though we're very well taken care of by all the household staff, after dancing for about 4 or 5 hours, how do you think you're going to feel about midnight? Tired, maybe? Hungry? Want a break? So that is actually when you're invited into the supper room behind me here for your big elaborate dinner. Bless you, men.
Thank you.
And you'd sit down, enjoy a good meal, several courses. That would take an hour or two. And then you'd head back in here to the ballroom and dance some more until the wee hours of the morning. So if y'all would like to follow me in the supper room, we'll check it out, see where your lovely dinner would be. Well, they actually, the way that they would have done it is the tables you see over here with the drop leaves, they would have just put rows of them, so about several rows in here, and then been able to fit everybody around. Because a good average figure is about 50 or 60 couples for a grand party. You would do about 120 people roughly. Of course, that all depends, because we do have evidence that some of the earlier governors would give big parties, and there was one time where, I can't remember which governor it was, but he wrote that he had 100 dancers and 100 onlookers alone, plus all the staff and all the people that, you know, would be working and taking care of it. So there could be a lot of people crammed into these rooms right here. But this is where you would have your dinner before you head back into the ballroom there for more dancing. However, for Lord Dunmore, this lavish ball that he gives actually ended up being the very last great party that he ever gave here at the governor's palace. And that's because his brief little time of being popular here in Virginia after he successfully made peace in the West didn't actually last that long. Because a few months later, in April of 1775, not only do the battles of Lexington and Concord take place up in Massachusetts and officially start the American Revolutionary War, but here in Williamsburg, Lord Dunmore is kind of anxious and nervous about all these building tensions and conflicts going on between the colonists and the mother country, and he's the king's direct representative. So he actually sends his Royal Marines in the middle of the night to the powder magazine across the street to take the gunpowder out and carry it to a British ship in the York River so that the colonists cannot take that powder and come and use it against him. He's afraid basically they'll come and attack him here at the palace. And so you can imagine how that angered all the Virginians, though, when he wakes up the next morning and finds a big mob gathered out front on Palace Green. And so he has to think fast, come out, and thankfully they all disperse and go home without any major fighting or anyone getting hurt at that time. However, a couple weeks later, someone set a spring gun trap in the same magazine. A couple boys were injured, and they all blamed Lord Dunmore for it. We don't know if he actually was the one to do it or not. But Lord Dunmore basically at that point says, okay, I'm done, I've had enough, I'm too afraid of what might happen. So he packs up his whole household, his wife, all of his children, and they leave out the back door right there in the middle of the night on June 8, 1775, and never come back. So that's how he leaves in 1775. But think about it, we're still a British colony for a whole other year. So Lord Dunmore is technically still the governor and still in charge. But he sends his family back home to Great Britain so that they're out of the way in safekeeping. But he stays here in Virginia and does his best to govern the colony. However, he never comes back here to Williamsburg. He goes all over the coast fighting against the Virginians until finally, the next summer, he hears we've adopted the Declaration of Independence and we're no longer part of the British Empire. So he realizes, well, I'm done for her. So he packs up and goes back home to England, where he actually does not pass away until 1809. So he has quite the long, prosperous life after his little stint
So Dunmore is done for.
Basically, that's a good way to put it.
How did the message get to him that there was a revolution going on in Boston?
Oh, well, he was still here because it got here about 9 days after. So Lexington and
about 9
Concord.
days, okay.
Yeah, it was
Lexington.
9 days after. But the gunpowder incident here, where he took the powder out,
Right.
that actually happened 2 days after Lexington and Concord.
But how did
Well, we
how
hadn't
did he
heard
know
about
to do that 2 days later?
He didn't. He just decided, I'm doing this because he didn't do it because of Lexington and Concord.
Oh, okay.
He just did it because of his own fear and his own worries. But yeah, good question, sir. Does anyone else have any questions about anything we talked about? No? All right. It's just neat to see, obviously we didn't always get along with Lord Dunmore or the British in general for that matter, but still, if you think about it, we were all British subjects here before we became Americans, and the British really helped to set us up for the success that we have as a nation today, because not only did they give us many good things that we wanted to keep pertaining to governing a nation and all of that, but they also showed us a lot of things that we wanted to try and make better and change. The big thing that you can kind of see, especially having gone through the palace now and learned about the role of the governor, is the fact that whereas before independence, we were all basically the people under the governor, afterwards we made a complete 180 switch, and now it's the governors under the people. Basically the people are in charge. And so that's the beauty of what we have here, and that ultimately came from our experience being part of the British Empire. So yeah, but thank you all for coming, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So that's very kind of you. We're gonna exit right out back here into the lovely garden. So let me know if anyone has any questions.
What is your name?
I'm Ellen.
Ellen?
Ellen, yes, sir.
Okay, because I think she's got you on.
Oh,
on video.
I'm going down in posterity now, huh?
You'll be famous, Ellen.
Be famous. Oh my.
Very good, appreciate it.
Thank you.
You all have a great day.
You too.
And the doors here, you just turn it and pull it. There you go. Oh, more or less. Not every after, for sure.
We have a long walk now.
Really Allerton-y.
This is very pleasant.
Looks like Allerton.
Yeah, I saw some in another area. It didn't look exactly like the place where we took pictures with Ava when we took pictures.